Ethan Cole had never expected his quiet days on the frontier colony of Therion 9 to turn into a life-altering adventure. The day had started like any other, him hunched over a malfunctioning grav lifter, sweat dripping down his forehead, tools scattered across the dusty floor of his workshop. Repairs had always been simple for a human with hands trained in both engineering and improvisation, but today was different. A faint, metallic hum grew louder, pulling Ethan's attention away from the lift. He glanced up, expecting another mining drone or one of the colony's hovering transports. Instead, a small figure emerged from the edge of the settlement, a girl, no more than 8 by human reckoning, moving with a cautious but determined gait. Her movements were tentative, almost ghost-like, as if the world she navigated were both present and absent. She wore a visor-like device over her eyes, patched together from bits of salvaged tech and glowing faintly in the dim morning light. "Hey, there," Ethan called gently, wiping his hands. "You lost." The girl froze, tilting her head. She didn't answer immediately. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft but firm. "I need to see." Ethan's heart sank slightly. He had heard of human settlers trying to integrate with Therion's native species, the Narians, and their neighbors, but no one mentioned children with sensory impairments being left to navigate alien terrain alone. Something about her tone struck him. It wasn't fear, it was resolve. "Right," he said, crouching to meet her eye level. "Let's see what we can do." Over the next 4 days, Ethan worked tirelessly. He scavenged components from abandoned colony modules, reprogrammed the colony's limited AI units, and soldered circuits with a precision only a human accustomed to improvisation could manage. The device he was building for her, a compact sensory visor, was simple in principle, but revolutionary in practice. It translated spatial data from LiDAR sensors into tactile feedback, allowing the girl to perceive her environment with remarkable clarity. When he finally activated it, the girl gasped softly. I can see," she whispered. Her fingers traced the contours of objects, the edges of walls, the curve of the grav lifter he'd been repairing earlier. Her expression, a mixture of awe and joy, was enough to make Ethan forget the long hours and frustration. He'd done it. A human had solved a problem no Narian engineer had managed in decades. HFY in its purest form. But as the initial elation faded, Ethan felt a prickle of unease. He had meddled with something far beyond the human colony, something tied to the native nobility, and on Therion 9, interference with Narian high houses wasn't taken lightly. Stories of humans disappearing after a single mistake were common. And yet, the girl's laughter as she moved confidently through his workshop made it hard to regret his actions. The morning after the visor's success, there was a definitive hiss as his workshop door slid open. Ethan looked up, expecting another repair request or a delivery drone. Instead, the figures in iridescent armor filled the doorway. Their movements were precise, their posture disciplined. The Narian's elite guards, Ethan Cole, the lead soldier, intoned, voice resonant and formal. "You are required at the House of Calith." Ethan's mind raced. "Is this about her?" he asked, nodding toward the girl, who now stood beside the guards, watching silently. The soldiers exchanged unreadable glances. "The child is unharmed," the lead guard said, each word deliberate. "Beyond that, we are not authorized to discuss. You will come with us." The gravity of the situation settled over him. Stories were true. Humans who crossed the nobility rarely returned. Had he violated some ancient law simply by giving her the gift of sight? He swallowed hard. 5 minutes, the guard added, reading his hesitation. "Clean yourself." Ethan wiped his hands on a rag and pulled on his cleanest shirt, his movements brisk but careful. He debated grabbing a concealed pulse pistol, but dismissed the idea against for elite Narians. A single human weapon was useless. The journey through the settlement was both humiliating and surreal. Citizens and alien species alike paused to watch a human escorted by the nobility's finest. Ethan could feel their eyes on him, curiosity and suspicion burning in equal measure. He held his head high, focusing on the girl walking beside him. Her newfound confidence a small anchor in the storm of anxiety, the Caliph estate loomed ahead, an architectural marvel of white stone interwoven with transparent materials that captured and refracted the sunlight. Gardens responded to their presence, plants shifting and swaying as if alive. Ethan's mind raced. One wrong move could end him. Yet, every instinct honed over a lifetime surviving on Earth, solving problems. With ingenuity, navigating hostile terrain told him he could handle what came next. Inside, the atrium was breathtaking. Gravity-defying water spiraled upward in luminescent streams, and the air smelled of exotic spices mixed with honey. The lead guard commanded him to wait. Ethan stood awkwardly as time stretched, his thoughts a whirlwind of fear and anticipation. Then, the doors opened and an elder Narian entered. His skin shimmered a deep indigo, silver hair perfectly arranged, robes adorned with subtle light patterns. "You are the human who restored sight to my granddaughter," he said, piercing Ethan with eyes that seemed to weigh every flaw, every motive. Ethan swallowed. "I didn't. I just built something to help her navigate." The elder circled. "Him, a predator assessing prey. A tool. A trivial distinction to a child who believed her world dark forever." "You would have done the same," Ethan said quietly, chest tight. "Any child deserves a chance to see." A tense silence followed. The guards tensed, weapons at the ready, expecting defiance or fear. Instead, the elder's expression shifted, a hint of amusement flickering across his face. "Remarkable," he said. "You humans. Audacity and courage. Always surprising." Before Ethan could react, the girl ran forward, arms around his waist. "Grandfather, you promised not to scare him," she said, her voice full of joy. The elder's sternness melted further. "I was merely testing his character. Fear is for the unworthy." Then a tall, elegant figure stepped forward. Violet hair flowed down her back, eyes flecked with silver. Lady Orioli's Caliph. Ethan's chest tightened. Here was someone who embodied the grace and power of her race, and yet she looked at him with respect, curiosity, and something far more potent, recognition of human ingenuity. "You are Ethan Cole," she said, voice like music. "You have given my daughter something no Narian physician could." Ethan nodded, words failing him. "Sometimes humans just see problems differently." Lady Orioli smiled, a small curve of lips that spoke volumes. "Indeed, and sometimes that makes all the difference." As they prepared for the evening's ceremonial celebration, Ethan felt a strange, exhilarating sense of place, not just as a human among aliens, but as someone who had proven that ingenuity, courage, and determination, things uniquely human, were enough to carve a place even among the stars. HFY wasn't just a concept. It was alive, embodied in the small girl at his side, in the elder who had recognized his worth, and in the woman whose gaze lingered on him a moment too long. The frontier had never been so vast, and Ethan Cole had never felt so ready to meet it head-on. Ethan had barely finished adjusting the last calibration on the girl's visor when a soft chime echoed through the Caliph estate, Lady Orioli's. Her violet hair cascading over one shoulder glanced toward the sound. "The council wishes to speak with you," she said, her tone measured but not unkind. "They are curious about human methods." Ethan's chest tightened. Council meetings with Narian elders were usually formalities for natives, and humans had rarely been included. Being called before them felt like stepping into the mouth of a storm. And yet, curiosity laced with admiration twined through the words of Orioli's, and for the first time, Ethan felt that his species' reputation as fragile, insignificant, or clumsy might actually be overturned. HFI, he thought, was more than survival, it was recognition. The council chamber was an awe-inspiring space, a high dome of translucent crystal, light refracting into shifting patterns that danced across the polished floor. At its center, hovering, platforms allowed elders to move without touching the ground, a silent display of technology and grace. The air hummed faintly, charged with energy. Ethan stepped onto the floor, visor-equipped girl in tow. Around him, a dozen Narian elders observed, Silently, indigo skin, silver hair, robes laced with shimmering energy patterns, eyes like gemstones dissecting him in every direction. Ethan's human heart thudded painfully against his ribs. He'd faced danger in the mines, in derelict colonies, even rogue frontier mercenaries, but this was different. No firearm, no EMP, no clever maneuvering would save him here. Only human ingenuity, courage, and honesty. "Ethan Cole," the eldest intoned, his voice deep and echoing. "You have performed a feat our science deemed impossible. You have restored sight to Leora Calith." "Yes," Ethan said, trying to keep his voice calm. "The girl deserved a chance. I built the visor so she could navigate the world safely. That's all." A ripple passed through the council, some leaning slightly forward, others murmuring softly. One elder, taller and with robes glowing a soft amber, finally spoke. "And you did so. With human technology," Ethan nodded, "with ingenuity, improvisation, and a willingness to see problems differently. Sometimes less advanced tech can solve more complicated problems." He met their gaze evenly. "Humans have survived by adapting, by thinking creatively when we don't have the resources you take for granted." A faint murmur of approval passed through some of the elders. Ethan felt a small surge of pride. This was why humans endured, not through raw strength or pure intelligence, but through adaptability, compassion, and relentless determination. HFY wasn't a boast, it was fact. The amber-robed elder inclined his head. "You understand the implications of your actions. You have interfered with the protocols of noble houses, bypassed medical authorities, and potentially endangered our species governance." Ethan's stomach tightened. "I did what I thought was right. I didn't know it would cause offense, but I couldn't stand by." Another elder, smaller and robed in shifting blue tones, leaned forward. "Yet, you succeeded where we failed. Your device is extraordinary." He paused, scanning Ethan from head to toe. "And your courage, human courage, is undeniable." Ethan exhaled slowly, shoulders relaxing fractionally. This wasn't a condemnation. This was recognition. He had faced death and judgment from a species whose lifespan, wisdom, and culture dwarfed his own, and he had prevailed. HFY. Humanity had endured, once again proving its value. The eldest nodded slowly. "You should be granted access to Calith resources, not as a servant, nor as an outsider merely tolerated, but as a collaborator, a human among us, learning and contributing." Ethan's mind whirled. Collaboration with the Caliph, tools, technology, and knowledge beyond anything Earth had produced, and he would have full access. He could hardly believe it, yet he swallowed his disbelief. Recognition came with responsibility. Lady Aureoles stepped closer. "You will need to learn our customs, our etiquette, and the proper use of Caliph tools. The celebration tonight will introduce you to our methods and expectations. It is formal." Her silver-flecked eyes held an intensity that reminded him of the first night he had met her. More than curiosity, it was anticipation, respect, and he felt it now, something more personal. "Yes, ma'am," Ethan said, trying to sound calm, though his pulse quickened. "I'll do my best." The council members exchanged looks. Finally, the eldest spoke again. "Go with Lady Aureoles. She will instruct you. This is not merely ceremony, it is preparation for your role here. You will need every skill and every ounce of human ingenuity." As Ethan followed her through the glowing corridors, he couldn't help but notice the bioluminescent plants shifting as they passed, walls rippling faintly as if alive. The technology was seamless, beautiful and intimidating, but he had survived. Frontier colonies, rogue miners, and alien predators. He could adapt. He would adapt. HFY. She led him to a private chamber, smaller than the council hall, but no less impressive. Floating platforms displayed the history of House Calith, battles, treaties, technological achievements, and portraits of ancestors whose gaze seemed to pierce through time. "Tonight," she said softly, "you will participate in rituals. That may feel alien, even uncomfortable. Observation is as important as participation. Pay attention." Ethan nodded. "I will. I've learned to read situations quickly." Her lips curved slightly. Good, humans are blunt, but that can be refreshing sometimes. The simplest approach unsettles centuries of tradition. As she handed him ceremonial garments, Ethan noticed subtle patterns in her eyes that seemed almost impossible, flecks of silver shifting, reflecting the room's ambient light. It reminded him of her earlier words, humans see differently. Perhaps she was saying the same about Narians. Dressing quickly, Ethan felt the weight of responsibility and opportunity settle on his shoulders. He wasn't merely a mechanic anymore. He was a representative of humanity, proving that courage, adaptability, and compassion could stand among advanced civilizations. He thought of Leora, the girl whose life he had changed. If humans could alter one child's destiny, imagine what else they could do in a galaxy that valued compliance over ingenuity. When he emerged, Lady Orioles led him to the main hall. Hundreds of Narians had gathered, floating lanterns casting soft light over faces that observed him with curiosity, suspicion, and occasionally admiration. The girl ran forward, arms extended, and he bent to scoop her up. "I see you've become confident with your visor," he said softly. She nodded, grinning. "I can see everything, thanks to you." And in that moment, Ethan realized that HFY wasn't about technology, politics, or even battles. It was about proving, again and again, that human creativity, determination, and heart could thrive even in the most alien and impossible circumstances. The night stretched before him, a maze of protocols, curious glances, and unspoken tests. But for the first time, Ethan felt ready not just to survive, but to excel, to leave a mark. HFY wasn't a story humans told, it was a life humans lived. And tonight, among the stars and alien nobility, humanity would prove it once more. Ethan had barely stepped back from the council's main hall when alarms echoed through the estate. Red lights bathed the corridors, and the bioluminescent flora dimmed as if sensing danger. Lady Orioles grabbed his arm. "Something is wrong. Follow me." The air was thick with tension as they ran through twisting corridors. Sensors detected movement ahead, fast, precise, and clearly not Caliph intruders, she hissed. Voice sharp. "House Valen has breached our defenses." Ethan's pulse quickened, but fear was tempered by the adrenaline that made humans excel where others hesitated. HFY wasn't about hiding, it was about using intellect, courage, and speed to solve impossible problems. "Where's the girl?" he asked, glancing down at Leora, who clung to his side. Orioles pointed to a small side corridor. "Here. We need to secure her and reach the safe room. Follow my lead. But be ready, Valen's forces are not ordinary guards." The corridor opened into a chamber filled with floating glyphs projecting defensive grids. Ethan's mind raced. He recognized the patterns. They were energy-based, interactive, and could be manipulated. "If I override this node," he muttered, "we can create a temporary corridor." "Do it," Orioles said, her trust implicit. She pulled Leora close, keeping her shielded from potential threats. Ethan's fingers flew across a handheld device he had modified earlier, feeding feedback from the glyphs. Sparks of energy danced across the walls, and the grid flickered. With a final press, a corridor opened, pulsating faintly with blue light, just enough for safe passage. Valen's troops weren't far behind. Metallic armor glinted in the dim light, weapons humming with lethal energy. Ethan pressed his hand against Leora's visor to ensure stability. "Hold on tight. HFY applies now." Without hesitation, he darted forward, human physiology giving him a slight advantage in bursts of speed. He had trained for dangerous environments, derelict mining stations, abandoned spaceports, rogue mercenaries, but never against an organized, technologically advanced force like Valen's. Every step, every maneuver had to be precise. Orioles followed closely, moving with a natural grace. Despite her elegance, she was deadly Narian agility, enhanced reflexes, and combat awareness. Together, they were a force that blurred the line between improvisation and tactical perfection. They reached a heavy door embedded with Caliph security. Marks Ethan knelt, analyzing the locking mechanism. I can hack this in under 30 seconds. Cover me. He pulled a data crystal from his pocket, interfacing it with the panel. Sparks of code rippled across the screen as the lock attempted. Multiple fail-safes. Done, he whispered, and the door slid open. The safe room was small, lined with reinforced walls and environmental controls. Leora ran to a cushioned platform, her visor flicking through real-time scans of the intruders. Ethan let out a slow breath. They won't get her, not while I'm alive. Outside, the sounds of battle grew. Valen's soldiers were sophisticated, but their tactics were predictable. Humans had a strange knack for improvisation, for seeing solutions that advanced beings often overlooked. HFY wasn't just an acronym, it was a demonstration humanity could turn raw courage and creativity into survival against the odds. Ethan activated a small EMP device, the one he had tested weeks earlier. The effect rippled through the corridor. Lights dimmed, shields flickered, and the first wave of Valen's guards slowed, disoriented. Go, he shouted. Arioles guided Leora behind a reinforced panel. While he prepared for the next stage, two soldiers entered, their energy rifles humming. Ethan moved like a shadow, ducking low, sidestepping, and using his momentum to knock one against the wall. A precise twist, and the second was disarmed. HFY didn't require brute strength, it required clever application of limited resources. From behind, the sound of a more formidable presence emerged. A towering figure, clad in Valen elite armor, approached, weapons activated. Ethan's mind raced. Strategy over power, adaptation over raw strength. He tossed a small sphere from his pocket, one that emitted a high-frequency pulse designed to disrupt armored electronics. The sphere detonated in a silent wave. The elite systems glitched, shields flickered, weapons jammed. Ethan seized the opportunity, rushing forward with calculated precision. A few movements later, the elite was incapacitated, slumped against the corridor wall. Ethan's breath came in short bursts. HFY, he thought, was about exploiting what the enemy underestimated. Humans were unpredictable in ways that advanced species couldn't always account for. Are we clear? Arioles asked, her voice combat tense. For now, Ethan replied. But they'll regroup. HFY means staying ahead. He checked Leora's visor. She was scanning, processing, and ready. We need extraction, Ethan said. A safe exit. Arioles nodded, guiding them through secondary corridors only the Caliph used for emergencies. Sensors flickered and shifted with each step. Valen's troops attempted pursuit, but Ethan's strategic placement of interference devices created delays. Every human advantage was amplified, thinking quickly, improvising, and refusing to be predictable. HFY in motion. Finally, they reached the landing pad. A Caliph skimmer descended silently, lights dimmed for stealth. Ethan ushered Leora. Aboard, go! He shouted, before Arioles followed, and he climbed in last as the skimmer lifted. The estate below erupted in flashes of light as Valen's forces attempted to regain control. Ethan's hands rested on the control panel, adapting to the unfamiliar. Craft with intuitive skill, human ingenuity allowed him to override minor controls in seconds, ensuring a clean departure. HFY once more proved true. From the skies above, Ethan looked down at the Caliph estate. Brilliant lights fading into the distance, he felt a swell of pride, not arrogance, but the quiet satisfaction of survival, adaptation, and the defense of the innocent. Leora's voice broke through his thoughts. Ethan, did you see that? He glanced at her. See what? The way you moved. Like you knew exactly what would happen next. Ethan smiled, ruffling her hair. It's called being human. We survive by seeing the world differently. HFY, kiddo. Arioles watched from the skimmer, a soft smile on her lips. Her violet hair danced in the artificial breeze. You truly are extraordinary, she murmured. Not because you're human, but because you embody everything rare in your species: courage, ingenuity, and compassion. Ethan felt a faint warmth in his chest. Recognition wasn't limited to his peers. It extended even to alien civilizations. HFY was more than a phrase. It was a principle, a proof that humanity's adaptability could thrive across the stars. As the skimmer disappeared into the darkness of the alien night, Ethan's mind already shifted forward, plans, contingencies, and improvements to Leora's. Visor raced through him. HFY wasn't just survival, it was opportunity. It was legacy. And humanity was just getting started. The stars stretched endlessly above, silent witnesses to human resilience. And Ethan, with a young prodigy at his side and a remarkable alien ally close, knew one thing with certainty. Nothing, not even a technologically superior enemy, could outmatch the heart and mind of a determined human. The skimmer cut through the alien night sky, a sleek silhouette against the glowing nebulae. Ethan glanced at Leora, her visor casting soft blue patterns across her face. She was alert, processing every movement, every faint signal. Humans had always been adaptable, but the child's resilience reminded him of why he had risked everything. HFY wasn't just ingenuity, it was courage under pressure. Arioles piloted the craft with a calm precision, her violet hair catching faint light, as she maneuvered through treacherous terrain. "We're approaching a safe zone," she said, her voice steady, but her eyes betrayed worry. "Valen will not surrender easily. They'll be hunting us." Ethan nodded. He already had contingencies in mind. Humans had this weird knack for improvising, for turning limited tools into critical advantages. The HFY principle, he thought, was survival through intellect, courage, and relentless adaptability. The landing zone appeared an abandoned mining outpost on a remote asteroid. It was crude, but perfect for temporary refuge. Ethan disembarked first, scanning the area for signs of pursuit. Sensors flickered across his wrist interface. No immediate threats, yet he knew better than to trust silence completely. "Stay close," he murmured to Leora, her small hand gripping his. She had become more than a charge. She was a student, observing and learning from his instincts. HFY wasn't just about saving her, it was about teaching her the value of strategy, courage, and intelligence. Inside the outpost, they set up a temporary command center. Ethan unpacked the devices he had carried: modified EMPs, signal disruptors, and an adaptive scanning tool. Each piece had been engineered to compensate for technological disparities. Humans thrive not by matching advanced tech, but by exploiting weaknesses through creativity. Arioles moved beside him, monitoring communications channels. "Valen is mobilizing," she said quietly. "They have reinforcements inbound, but they won't expect us to counterattack from here." Ethan smiled faintly. Humans thrive in the unexpected. HFY isn't just a phrase, it's a method. Let's make sure they understand that. Hours passed as they prepared. Leora assisted, where she could, her visor providing enhanced analytics that even Arioles found impressive. "You've trained her well," Arioles remarked, her voice tinged with admiration. Ethan shrugged modestly. "She's a quick learner. Humans adapt fast, especially when stakes are high." The first sign of Valen's forces came as a distant shimmer transport signature approaching the asteroid. Ethan activated one of his devices, a small orb designed to emit a deceptive signal, creating phantom movement patterns across sensors. The enemy would believe they were facing a larger force than present. HFY relied on psychological advantage as much as physical. When the transports landed, Valen's soldiers disembarked, scanning aggressively. But the illusions confused them. They paused, weapons sweeping areas that held nothing. Ethan seized the moment. "Time for Phase 2, he said, his voice low but confident. Using a handheld device, he remotely activated several prepositioned drones. They hummed silently before releasing high-intensity EMP bursts. Valen's armor and weapons flickered, systems temporarily incapacitated. Arioles moved like a shadow, disabling remaining opposition with non-lethal precision. Leora watched, fascinated, taking mental notes. Humans didn't just fight, they adapted, improvised, and survived against superior forces. HFY in action. Ethan approached the largest Valen transport, where it could contain a command unit. "I'll handle the transport," You keep Leora safe. Arioles inclined her head. Understanding the unspoken strategy, humans thrived when each member of a team optimized their unique strengths. He placed a modified scanner near the transport's hull, sending a localized pulse that temporarily shut down critical systems. With a swift motion, he accessed the interior. Soldiers scrambled, but their reactions were sluggish, hampered by the pulse. Ethan neutralized them efficiently, relying on precision and human unpredictability. Inside, he found the command unit, a humanoid officer with an energy console. "You're too late," the officer spat, activating a self-destruct sequence. Ethan's mind raced. HFY meant quick thinking. Using a small magnetic disruptor, he disabled the sequence just in time, ensuring the transport wouldn't explode. Prematurely. By the time Ethan returned to the main outpost, Arioles had secured Leora. "They won't be attacking again tonight," she reported, a hint of relief in her voice. "Good," Ethan said, catching his breath. "But we need to anticipate their next move. HFY is about thinking several steps ahead. They'll regroup and come after us with better strategy and more troops." Arioles nodded. "We'll prepare. Your methods, they're effective. I've never seen anyone react so intuitively under pressure." Ethan smiled, a faint sense of pride swelling. Humans have a reputation for being underestimated. That's the advantage. HFY isn't just surviving, it's outhinking the opposition, even when odds are stacked against you. Night fell over the asteroid, the void beyond illuminated by distant stars. Ethan, Arioles, and Leora huddled in the temporary command center, strategizing for the inevitable return of Valen. Ethan examined maps, sensor feeds, and potential escape routes. HFY wasn't luck, it was preparation, observation, and rapid adaptation. Leora spoke quietly, her voice tinged with awe. "Will they come back?" Ethan crouched to her level. "Yes, but we'll be ready. Humans always find a way." HFY means never giving up, never being predictable, and always turning disadvantages into opportunities. Arioles placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "And with your ingenuity, they don't stand a chance." Ethan's eyes scanned the horizon, the asteroids, jagged peaks outlined against distant star fields. The enemy was strong, their technology advanced, but humans had something unique: adaptability, resourcefulness, and the will to protect what mattered most. HFY wasn't just a motto, it was a declaration. Humanity survived where others would fail, thrived where others faltered, and triumphed where others hesitated. As the first light of an alien dawn touched the outpost, Ethan felt a quiet confidence. Valen's shadow loomed, but the human spirit, combined with loyal allies like Arioles and courageous learners like Leora, would turn the tide. HFY was alive, pulsating through every decision, every action, every heartbeat. And when the inevitable confrontation came, it would not be through superior numbers or tech, it would be through the uniquely human blend of courage, intellect, and ingenuity. Ethan looked at Leora, her eyes bright with anticipation. "Tomorrow," he said softly, "we show them what humans can do. HFY isn't just survival, it's victory." The asteroid was quiet now, but the storm was coming, and humans, as always, would rise to meet it. The twin suns of Valen's homeworld were rising, casting long shadows across the battlefield. Ethan crouched behind a jagged rock outcrop, Leora at his side, her visor humming softly as it scanned for enemy movement. Arioles moved beside them, her pulse rifle ready, eyes sharp with anticipation. The stakes had never been higher. Valen's forces were prepared, but so were they. Humans thrived under pressure. HFY was a mindset, and tonight it would decide the fate of 3 worlds. Satellites confirmed troop concentrations, Arioles said quietly. They've fortified the eastern ridge, but there's a weak point on the northern flank. Minimal coverage. Ethan nodded, processing the intel. HFY meant exploiting the smallest advantage, no matter how minute. Northern flank it is, he said. We'll create a diversion to draw attention elsewhere. Leora tilted her head, eyes wide behind her visor. A diversion, Like what you did at the asteroid. Ethan smiled. Exactly. Humans think differently. We improvise. HFY isn't just about brute force, it's strategy, creativity, and daring. They moved with calculated precision, advancing undercover, scanning every ridge and crevice. The enemy had sophisticated sensors, but Ethan had anticipated their blind spots. He activated a small device on his wrist. A lowhum filled the air, then vanished. Valen's sensors flickered, creating a momentary lapse of awareness. Go. He whispered, leading the way. The northern flank was a precarious slope, littered with jagged rocks and alien flora. Ethan and Arioles advanced silently, Leora in tow. Every step had to be perfect. One misstep, and they would be exposed to overwhelming firepower. Then the first patrol appeared. To Valen's soldiers, scanning the area with precision, Ethan dropped low, pressing Leora behind a boulder. With a swift motion, he tossed a small EMP grenade ahead. The soldiers froze as their weapons powered down momentarily. In the blink of an eye, Ethan neutralized them, incapacitating rather than killing. HFY wasn't cruelty, it was efficiency under pressure. They pressed forward. The northern ridge was within reach, a vantage point that could turn the tide. Ethan deployed a series of small drones, each fitted with sensors and signal jammers. The drones relayed real-time data, giving them an edge no enemy expected. Humans thrived when they were underestimated, and tonight, that would be their greatest weapon. Enemy reinforcements, Arioles warned, coming from the eastern ridge. Ethan's mind raced. He had a plan. HFY meant turning desperation into opportunity. He activated a hidden device on his belt, a sonic disruptor, calibrated to create chaos within the enemy ranks. Valen's soldiers faltered. Communication lines scrambled. Ethan and Arioles moved in with precision strikes, guiding Leora through. The chaos safely dotted the ridge. They established a position. Ethan peered through his scope, noting troop movements, weak points, and strategic positions. HFY was not just about survival, it was about domination through intellect, speed, and coordination. Ready? He asked. Always, Arioles replied. They initiated the attack. Ethan's modified weapons disabled key vehicles and energy shields, while Arioles provided suppressive fire. Leora, small but brilliant, used her visor to direct drones, guiding strikes with uncanny accuracy. Valen's forces were skilled, but they were predictable. Humans thrived where others faltered. HFY wasn't luck, it was thinking differently, acting boldly, and never yielding. Hours passed in a blur of strategy and action. Each move Ethan made forced the enemy into reactive positions. Every human decision exploited the rigid hierarchy and overconfidence of Valen's officers. HFY was alive in every calculation, every strike, every clever maneuver. Finally, the Valen command ship hovered above the battlefield, attempting to coordinate a counterattack. Ethan's team had anticipated this. With a synchronized strike, they disabled the ship's energy core, forcing it to land uncontrollably. The enemy's morale shattered. HFY was not just survival, it was inspiring fear in an opponent who underestimated human. Ingenuity. Ethan led the final push. Leora, her small frame moving with remarkable agility, guided the remaining drones, disabling last pockets of resistance. Arioles flanked the remaining officers, their weapons rendered useless by ingenious traps set by Ethan, Valen's leader. A towering alien with advanced armor and cybernetic enhancements confronted Ethan. "You cannot defeat me," he roared, energy blade raised. Ethan's heart pounded, but his mind was calm. Humans thrived under pressure. HFY wasn't about matching strength, it was about out-hinking it. With a swift maneuver, he used the terrain to his advantage, disarming the alien and exploiting a critical weakness in the armor's power distribution. The alien fell, incapacitated but alive. Ethan offered a handed gesture of respect, human style. HFY wasn't only about victory, it was about integrity and honor. The battlefield fell silent. The remnants of Valen's forces surrendered. Arioles approached, her pulse rifle lowering. Eyes reflecting awe and relief, Leora ran to Ethan, her small arms wrapping around him. "You did it," she whispered. "We did it." Ethan knelt to her level. "No," he said softly. "Humans did it. HFY. Courage, ingenuity, and never giving up." As they returned to the command center, leaders from multiple allied worlds awaited. They had witnessed something extraordinary, a human's ability to turn disadvantage into triumph, to survive against superior technology and numbers, and to inspire hope and unity among allies. The formal recognition ceremony was held atop the central plateau. Ethan stood, tall as leaders from various species awarded honors not just for victory, but for exemplifying what humanity could achieve. HFY was no longer a concept, it was an example, living proof that humans could thrive anywhere, even against the most advanced civilizations. Leora stood beside him, her visor reflecting the sunrise. "Will humans always do this?" she asked. Ethan smiled, placing a protective hand on her shoulder. "When it matters most, yes. HFY isn't about luck or technology. It's about courage, intelligence, and heart. It's about standing up when everyone else expects you to fail and proving them wrong." Arioles approached, placing a hand on Ethan's arm. "Your species is remarkable. You inspire even the most stoic of us." HFY indeed. Ethan looked at the horizon, at a galaxy filled with challenges, threats, and adventures. Humans would face them all, adapting, improvising, and thriving. Not because they were the strongest, not because they had the most advanced technology, but because they dared to think differently, act boldly, and care deeply enough to overcome any obstacle. The galaxy had witnessed humanity's triumph once. More, HFY was alive in every corner of the universe, a testament to ingenuity, courage, and the unyielding spirit of a species that refused to be underestimated. Ethan took a deep breath. Leora at his side, Arioles close. "What's next?" he asked. Arioles smiled, eyes shining. "More challenges, more worlds, but we faced them together." And as the twin suns bathed the plateau in golden light, humanity's flag, a symbol of ingenuity, courage, and hope, flew. HFY had prevailed. The stars themselves seemed to whisper in approval.